Welcome to OverHERD at Career Education. My name is Denny Doherty, and today I'm joined with Kadin Tooley. Kadin, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
For sure, yeah. I am an alumni now of Marshall University, graduated in December out of the video production program. Been making movies for about 6 years now.
Awesome.
In the Appalachian area, in Huntington all the way to Winfield, Fraser's Bottom. So.
Nice. Thank you. And this is a segment on OverHERD at Career Education called Student Spotlight. And if you've been keeping up with our podcast, you'll know that we've done a number of these. This one for me is a little bit different because, Kadin, I've known you for a very long time. I've known you and your family. Kadin's dad is actually my pastor. And I don't know how long you remember me, but I remember you as like a elementary school kid. So it's really cool to see you growing up and not just doing really well in the world, because I love anytime students are just rock and rolling at anything they do, but just doing something you love so much and have so much talent for, that makes it just, I think, that much better. So I just think that's I just think that's really cool.
Well, thank you, Denny.
Oh, my pleasure. So let's see, just kind of moving through, I had some questions here I kind of wanted to go over, and I think you gave us a really good background for who you are and some of the things that you're passionate about. So would you care to tell us a little bit about why you chose Marshall University, as well as why you chose your major?
For sure. So, Marshall for me, when I was starting to consider where to go out of high school, was my first choice originally because of the proximity to where I was living at the time. And as well, my dad went to Marshall, attended Marshall. So I was familiar with the area. We had a church in Huntington at the time. So, we were here every week, and it just felt right to me. And that same feeling was kind of confirmed when I toured and when I got to speak to some of the professors, and especially when I learned there was a video production program and just an art school in general, because the art school at the time was pretty new. I think when I came to Marshall, the video production program was brand new. Like we were the first freshman class, if not maybe the second freshman class to join in the program. So it was really exciting, and I got to kind of see the program develop. And I just wanted to come and make movies, but it ended up being a lot more than that. Being able to kind of hone my skill and meet people to help me in that process. So.
Oh, that's incredible. And one of the things I want to do is when we get this podcast, when it's posted, and right now we're posting all of these to YouTube, we're looking at some of the more traditional podcast platforms for down the road. I think this is just an incredible testimony to the program, just how good of a student they turn out, how well they prepare someone too. So it's really exciting. I knew it was relatively new. I didn't know that you were kind of in the inaugural class going through there. So that's pretty awesome.
I believe we were the second class to capstone. So
cool.
There was one class before us, and it was only, I think, 3 individuals at capstone. So
okay. So still pretty new. Everyone's getting their sea legs, as they say. When you go through that. Would you kind of tell us maybe about a couple of your projects? Because I've seen from time to time. I know you've done some really cool stuff. If you just maybe want to tell us about some of the projects you've done. Or?
Yeah. So I got to make countless short films that were both projects for school and personal projects, like while I was at Marshall. So I was lucky enough to be able to take part and be able to be accepted to the film festival that they have at Marshall, the Student Film Festival. So I made countless projects for those. But most recently, I'd say my most recent project was my capstone film at Marshall, Exodus 2320. It's a 45-minute film that was filmed entirely in West Virginia. So
cool.
I was so lucky to get a grant from Marshall to help make that film happen. It wouldn't have happened without them.
That's incredible.
The Creative Discovery Grant through Marshall. So, still trying to wrap that up. That actually premieres tomorrow.
Awesome! This is well timed. Yeah. I'm excited to check that out.
So so that's super exciting. Got to work with a lot of really talented people from Marshall and from Huntington, as well as some people from out of state, which is really cool. So that's the most recent. The one right before that was I was the cinematographer on a 4-part anthology series, and that again was filmed in Huntington. A guy named Nate Sesko and Afshin Masagi, they wrote and directed it, and it actually got on Amazon Prime Video and, and has had some really, really awesome reviews. So it's super exciting to see West Virginia based content getting seen,
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because that's when you think about that, is really, I think, really neat because, I mean, on one hand, I know when people hear West Virginia, there's certain things that come to mind, but also just when you think like a video scene, like an art scene, West Virginia is not what comes to mind.
Totally.
I mean, for me, I think New York or West Coast, and I know it's true, but it's incomplete, and there's opportunities elsewhere. So I think just getting that kind of exposure is really great as well.
Yeah. I mean, Marshall has had a huge hand in that, if not like half and half, in my opinion, just because, the one film that people talk about in Huntington is We Are Marshall, and that was filmed because of Marshall. And now with the video production program, I mean, hopefully, like, there will be filmmakers constantly working in some facet every year. So
that's awesome. Love that. And one thing I really like that you had mentioned when you were telling us about that was participating in film festivals and things like that. And that's the next thing I kind of wanted to talk about is maybe some of the, I call them like the big breaks, or some of the like the breaks like that you've had, but also maybe opportunities that you've seized. So I don't know if you want to maybe describe both of those or one or the other of those to us a little bit, because that's something I tell students about. It's important when you see those opportunities, jump on them. And I think that's one thing that really strikes me about you, is you're a person who does that. So would you care to kind of elaborate on that a little bit? Or?
Totally. I've gotten all kinds of people, and we were surveyed when we applied for graduation at Marshall, and asking, what at Marshall did you learn? Like, what was the one thing that you took away? And it's almost sounds like it's a negative thing for me, like I'm being negative about the program, but it's not at all. It is the idea that, especially in the video production program, like, you have to be a self-starter. There's no other way, because there's not the time and there's not the resources to teach you what you would want to learn, because you can dive deep when it comes to filmmaking and video making, and there's just not the time to hone that in a classroom setting. So you have to pursue that personally and take that upon yourself to make connections, to hone your skill and that kind of thing. So being at Marshall, I would say you use the term break, but I would say my opportunity was being able to meet individuals that challenged me in that way. I was in a senior of high school, and I got approached by a friend of mine, and he was at Marshall 1 year ahead of me, so he had already had gotten accepted and was attending. And he was a English major, he was a writer, and he said, hey man, I'd love to make a short film. Like, I love movies, and I'd like to write it, because that's kind of what I'm trying to do. And he approached me, and we collaborated and like met up and filmed it in a day. And it was really my first experience like on a set, even though it was me like holding a camera with my bare hands. And Josh, he was acting in it as well, and my little brother Connor was the lead as well. And it was just super fun, because it felt like we were just making something on the whim, without any planning at all, like nothing. So we made this, and Josh emails me maybe 5 months after that and is like, hey man, our film got accepted at Student Short Film Festival in Marshall. I applied it I just put it in there because I wanted to, and it got picked to show. And like, that blew my mind, that like something that we made for free could even be seen, 100 people that were in the theater. So I remember where I was and what I was feeling when I saw that email. So I'd say that is like, I was kind of ushered into the world of like, I could make things that people would potentially want to see. And that's just, working, collaboration, and putting your work out there is kind of what I've continued to do and continue to try to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the idea of, like you talked about, collaboration too. And that's one thing maybe I wanted to chat about here a little bit more, was when we talk about connections, and maybe if you have any advice on making connections, because I feel like I tell students to do that a lot. And like so many things, hey, make connections, hey, go network. It's easy to say, but what does it look like in practice? But at the same time, I feel that it's something that I'm guilty of this as anyone. I feel like it's something that we probably over-engineer. I think we overcomplicate it, and we just make it harder than it needs to be. And it sounds like, a friend from high school. Because, for instance, I always think of networking as, I need to go to the top and try to meet a professional in the field, and how am I going to do that? But hey, it sounds like, just taking advantage and looking at who's in your circle, and finding people that you have similarities with is kind of where you got your start. But as far as like making connections, do you have any additional advice for us? Or
I think you touched on it, didn't you? Because it really is just jumping on what feels like an opportunity. And I mean, I'm only just graduated, so I don't need to sound like a sage like when I say this, but I do want to say that, like, the best connections and the best opportunities that I've had are ones that I've jumped on not caring if it works or doesn't. And I think you need to use, like, maybe your moral compass, maybe your gut feeling to say, like, is this worth my time? Is it worth doing? But in your years at university, at Marshall, or just college in general, like, there's no better time to screw up.
Right.
In my opinion, especially, when you're trying to hone what you're good at and what you're not good at. So I would say, when somebody comes up and says, hey, let's make something, say yes. Don't let them take advantage of you, but try it, because you never know. Like, you absolutely never know what could come of it.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think sometimes we either take ourselves too seriously or we're too afraid to fail. And that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think, being too afraid to fail, because ironically, I think that's what it can lead to. So just, again, very incredible advice. So can you tell us a little bit about your plans now that you graduated? So what's next for you?
So I'm going to try to make as much in West Virginia as I can.
Okay.
Just because it hasn't stopped me yet. And I say that because I'm looking around, I'm seeing filmmakers that I've worked with, and it hasn't stopped them yet. There's this weird stigma that West Virginia, you can't be an artist or it can't be a filmmaker. And in some regards, that's true, but then others, it's definitely not. So, films can still be made here, and potentially for cheaper, more interestingly, if that's a word. You can make things here that apply to the area or use people in the area more efficiently than you could anywhere else. And I'm going to continue, because I have people that want to make work and that make really good work, and I want to keep doing that here as long as I can. But of course, like we just spoke on, if an opportunity arises, I'm going to kind of act on it. So
awesome. Absolutely. And that's the same advice I would give to a student. Is there's a business professor, Mark Solacey. I did it was the other outreach we do. It's called Career Ed Live. It's a Q&A session, and he was on in the fall, and one of his pieces of advice was, when opportunity knocks, answer the door even if you're naked. And I love that. And it's funny, because I had students in my career planning class. I gave them an assignment that involved watching some of our stuff, and more than one student pulled that line out and wrote about it in their paper. But it's true. And there's always a reason to not take advantage of an opportunity. There's always you can always think of a reason to not do something, but there's so many more reasons to do something.
Yeah, totally. I love that.
I love it too. I think I'm gonna get a tattoo to write it on my wall or do something. I don't know. So do you have any other advice to offer students, particularly I'd say College of Arts and Media students, but also just maybe any students at Marshall? What advice would you have?
Yeah, I don't mean to repeat myself, and I'm going to try not to, but just from a scheduling perspective, from a just watch out for yourself. I mean, be a self-starter in that way. That's really good. Because you have an advisor, but they're not sitting with you at 12 a.m. scheduling your class, So, like, make sure that you hit those deadlines. Make sure that you put the thought in the day before. Because the only reason I was able to graduate even a semester early was just being able to, just sit down and really think about, what's going to be better for me, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of taking pride in the fact that you want to finish on time. Like you want to make it as easy as possible, as painless as possible. So. Definitely, and I really like the essence of what you said, is just have some ownership over it, because I know when I started school, I think for a while is when it was like FAFSA time, it was like, hey mom, do this, or it's scheduling time, hey advisors, tell me what I need, and it's like you kind of go through on autopilot, and you don't want to think about those hard decisions. You almost don't want to have to make a decision. It's like you don't want to be at all. You don't want to face the real world. You want to just kind of coast. And usually when people do that in life, I don't think great things happen. Because I know me, when I've kind of like done the things you said, taking some ownership, it's amazing how many more doors open and how you can not only maybe get to where you want better, but also quicker. For
so
sure.
I think that's some really excellent advice. So do you have any parting thoughts for us today?
I would say just take pride in your work, at Marshall, be it whatever major you're in, aside from being an artist or being a filmmaker, and just do it the best that you can, because there will be rewards at the end, for sure. And it's just a matter of, you've got your whole life ahead of you, so just take this time now to do it right.
Absolutely. And I think to build on that, I love so many of the things that you've mentioned to us today, everything from take advantage of the opportunities, don't be afraid to fail. But I like your wisdom and your long view of things too. Is that's something I try to tell students I've had students come to me before they've had like one or two bad semesters and they think their life is over, and they're like 19, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure at my house I've got a t-shirt that's older than you. And not to disparage them, but I'm just saying, your whole life is ahead of you, and you may have a setback, but there's success and there are good things on the other side of that. So don't write off college, or don't write off an opportunity, or anything like that. So I think I'm serious about the t-shirt. I think I need to do some house cleaning. That's not really a joke. I think I can put it on a YouTube channel if anyone's curious. But anyway, I want to thank everyone for joining us today on Overheard at Career Education. Again, this has been Student Spotlight with Kadin Tooley. Kadin, thank you again so much for joining me. I've loved your words of advice and your words of wisdom for the students. And I hope everyone joins us back here next time.